During the next few minutes, you're going to discover 10 masterpieces that won't just blow your mind. They'll make you question what cinema can truly be. Films born from delirium, from pain, from absolute genius. Some were banned. Others destroyed their creators. And one, number one, was so ambitious it tried to film the Genesis, the Apocalypse, and the human soul all at once. Partially destroyed by its own government, it even forced its director into exile. If you're passionate about films that defy logic, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and follow me on Instagram. That's where you can send me ideas that later become videos like this. Get ready. What you're about to see is not from this world. In the 70s, Alejandro Jodorowsky wanted to do more than make a film. He wanted to film enlightenment itself. The result was The Holy Mountain, a work so extreme it feels created by a god, or by a madman. Funded by the legendary John Lennon and made under the influence of LSD, Jodorowsky turned the shoot into a ritual. He forced the actors to live for weeks through real spiritual therapy. Fasting, meditation, silence, even psychedelic drugs to break their egos. His goal wasn't to act, but to be reborn in front of the camera. The story is almost indescribable. A thief crucified by society joins an alchemist, played by Jodorowsky himself, and a group of powerful people seeking to climb a sacred mountain and reach immortality. Every scene is an explosion of symbols: blood, gold, sex, excrement, religion, capitalism. A satire of the modern world turned into a mystical experience. The Holy Mountain was censored, worshipped, and hated at the same time. Many walk out halfway through. Others swear it changed their lives. John Lennon was fascinated by its psychedelic vision and considered Jodorowsky a true guru of art. His support was crucial for the film's existence, though he later admitted it was so intense he could barely rewatch it. And when you reach the ending, breaking the fourth wall and destroying cinema itself, you realize Jodorowsky never wanted to tell you a story. He wanted to free you from the illusion of watching one. Few films have ever been so ambitious, so impossible, and so divine. Enter the Void begins with a 15-minute DMT trip until the protagonist is suddenly killed. Gaspar Noé conceived the film under the influence of that same drug, wanting it to feel like dying and being reborn inside a fluorescent nightmare. And he succeeded. Shot entirely from the point of view of a soul wandering through Tokyo after death, the film is an out-of-body experience. Every frame feels hypnotic. Neon lights, breathing sounds, pulses of color. The camera floats, passing through ceilings, bodies, memories, an endless dance between heaven and hell. With the ambition of creating the ultimate psychedelic experience, Noé spent years studying how different religions depict death, merging it all together: Buddhism, reincarnation, quantum theory, experimental cinema. The result was so intense that many viewers left the theater dizzy or overwhelmed. But those who stayed experienced what Noé himself called a projection of the soul. It's not about understanding the plot. It's about surrendering. Letting the camera become your consciousness while Tokyo turns into a womb, a nightclub, and a tomb at the same time. It's a radical masterpiece, divisive, disturbing, fascinating. An audio-visual trance that could only come from someone unafraid to stare directly at the forbidden. A simple typo leads to the arrest and torture of an innocent man. That's how Brazil begins, one of the most visionary and disturbing films ever made. In a dystopian future ruled by bureaucracy, machines, and fear, an ordinary man named Sam Lowry dares to do the only truly dangerous thing: dream. As offices stretch like labyrinths and paperwork replaces emotions, Sam begins to rebel against reality. By day, he's just another cog in the system. By night, he flies through his dreams, chasing an impossible woman. But the more he tries to break free, the deeper he falls into the nightmare. Terry Gilliam turned this story into a dazzling, chaotic satire. Cables twisting like veins, screens that spy, cities where life is measured by administrative mistakes. A world that looks futuristic, but is actually our own. The studio tried to censor the ending, demanding a happy resolution. Gilliam refused, stole his own film, and screened it secretly until his version was finally released. He won the battle, but Brazil became a symbol, the work of an artist who refused to obey. 40 years later, its message feels more real than ever. We live connected, watched, trapped in systems that confuse control with progress. And while we keep dreaming of escape, Brazil reminds us that the nightmare has already begun. We just call it modern life. An actress starts shooting a film and slowly realizes that the story she's acting is actually happening. That's Inland Empire, David Lynch's darkest, most chaotic, and most disturbing work. A 3-hour experience where the line between cinema and nightmare disappears. Lynch filmed for years without a script, improvising scenes, letting logic dissolve in front of the camera. The result is a spiral of broken identities, dreams within dreams, and cameras that seem to record the human subconscious. Laura Dern plays a woman lost among characters, corridors, memories, and versions of herself. A raw, terrifying performance that might be the most extreme Lynch ever directed. Shot digitally with a grimy, dreamlike texture, Inland Empire doesn't want to be understood. It wants to trap you. Its images can't be explained, only felt. Distorted faces, warped laughter, flickering lights. Every frame feels like a crack opening inside the mind. Many consider it impossible to watch, yet those who manage to tune into its rhythm experience something no other film evokes. Because Inland Empire isn't about a story. It's about losing yourself inside one. The fever dream of an artist who no longer distinguishes between creation and madness. Donnie Darko is one of the most enigmatic, melancholic, and generation-defining films of the 21st century. It tells the story of a teenager who begins to see visions of a man in a rabbit mask who tells him the world will end. The film is a journey through madness, faith, and quantum physics, one that turned its protagonist into a modern icon. Richard Kelly shot it at just 26 years old, never imagining it would become a myth. It's the story of a teenager who sees what no one else can, who senses that time is broken, that love and death are two sides of the same destiny. Nothing in Donnie Darko follows the rules. High school feels like a dream, conversations echo like memories, and reality fractures like glass. Its paradoxes and time loops aren't explained. They feel like memories of a life we never lived. Jake Gyllenhaal delivers a haunting performance, his eyes filled with brilliance and despair, a soul caught between clarity and madness. The film failed at release, but over time became a cult phenomenon. Its atmosphere, melancholic, electric, strangely spiritual, still haunts anyone who watches it. And its song, Mad World, feels like a prayer for those who no longer know whether they're awake or dreaming. Donnie Darko can't be understood with the mind, only with the wound. It gives no answers. It only leaves you with the feeling that you've glimpsed something forbidden. Possession, by Andrzej Żuławski, is one of the most deranged and extreme films ever made. A portrait of emotional collapse pushed to the edge of human endurance. A woman asks her husband for a divorce, and from that simple rupture, hell is born. Shot in divided Berlin in the 1980s, the story begins as a marital drama, but quickly turns into an unbearable experience. A scream of pain so pure, it stops resembling realism and becomes exorcism. Isabelle Adjani gives one of the wildest, most unhinged performances in cinema history. In the subway scene, one of the most disturbing ever filmed, she seems possessed by something beyond acting. After that film, it took her years to recover. Żuławski said possession was born from his own divorce, and it shows. Every frame bleeds jealousy, guilt, and desire. Yet there's something sacred in it. As if beneath the chaos, there were a desperate search for absolute love, even if that love destroys everything. Many hate it, others worship it, but no one walks away unscarred. And I'm one of those who worship it. Probably my favorite horror film alongside The Shining. Possession makes you live madness, suffer, and scream from within. Few films dare to do what Stalker does. It doesn't just stop time, it kills it. Andrei Tarkovsky built an experience that doesn't seek to entertain, but to transform. Over nearly 3 hours, he turns science fiction into philosophy and cinema into an act of faith. The story is simple. 3 men, a guide, a scientist, and a writer, cross a forbidden territory known as the Zone, where a room exists that grants one's deepest desires. But Tarkovsky uses that premise to explore something much greater: faith, doubt, art, and the meaning of existence itself. Every shot feels like meditation. The extremely slow rhythm, the silence, the duration, everything is designed to force you to look inward. Stalker doesn't impose through action, but through patience. And in that stillness, it achieves the impossible, making the invisible visible. The shoot was hell. Filmed in contaminated locations, several crew members became ill, including Tarkovsky, who died a few years later. It's as if the film demanded sacrifice, even from its creator. Visually, it's one of the most ambitious works in history. Absurdly long takes, frames that look like living paintings, and a cinematography that turns rust and mud into poetry. But it's not all beautiful. If 2001 seems slow to you, this one is 100 times slower. It's a rhythm designed to induce a meditative state, but if you can't enter it, it's pure torment. Personally, I found it unbearable. I felt like I was dying while watching it. But you have to judge it for yourself, because one thing is certain: Stalker is an experience, and objectively, one of the most unique and ambitious films ever made. A saxophonist lives peacefully with his wife, until one day he receives a videotape. On it, someone has recorded the inside of their house while they slept. From that moment on, everything collapses. Identity, time, love. Nothing makes sense anymore. That's how Lost Highway begins, David Lynch's darkest and most twisted nightmare. A story about a man lost within his own mind, trapped in a loop of guilt, desire, and violence with no escape. Lynch turns the ordinary into threat. A hallway, a phone call, a flickering light. Everything feels wrong. Everything inspires fear without showing anything. Every scene is designed to disorient you. The protagonist changes bodies. The story repeats with new faces, and reality merges with fantasy until you can no longer tell them apart. It feels like being trapped inside an endless nightmare, one where you too start forgetting who you are. Visually, Lost Highway is pure atmosphere. Empty roads lit by headlights, deserted motels, static noise, a yellowish infernal cinematography. The soundtrack, with David Bowie and Trent Reznor, turns the film into a descent into the modern hell. The hell of the mind. Many consider it Lynch's most confusing film, but also his most prophetic. It speaks of fractured identity, desire turning into guilt, and the collapse between reality and illusion. Exactly the world we live in today. – 2001, A Space Odyssey, the film that redefined what it means to watch cinema. Stanley Kubrick didn't make science fiction. He made a spiritual experience, a question addressed directly to the universe. It begins with a group of apes discovering violence, and ends with a man transcending his own humanity. 2.5 hours with no explanations. Only music, silence, and the most hypnotic images ever captured. Kubrick set out to show the entire history of humankind from the beginning to infinity in a single film, and he succeeded. Every frame, every time jump, every silence is a meditation on intelligence, loneliness, and destiny. At its premiere, half the audience walked out. The other half cried, dizzy, in a trance. Many left without understanding anything, but with the feeling they'd witnessed something divine. Kubrick pushed human ambition to its limit, designing special effects that still look futuristic, filming zero-gravity scenes without computers, and composing a visual symphony that turned space into a temple. 60 years later, 2001 remains the pinnacle of cinema, probably the greatest film ever made. And if it's not number one, it's because there's another one, far less known, far more insane, and so absurdly ambitious that it could only have existed thanks to a communist government. On the Silver Globe is a film that refused to die. A communist government tried to destroy it, yet it survived like a mutilated corpse. Andrzej Żuławski set out to make the most ambitious science fiction film ever conceived. Funded by Poland's communist regime in the 1970s, its production was pure madness. Deserts, spacesuits, hundreds of extras, sets that looked like another planet. For a moment, it seemed that, for once, something truly great might emerge from communism. But no. When the project was nearly finished, the government deemed it dangerous, mystical, and subversive. They ordered it destroyed, burned the sets, confiscated the reels, and banned Żuławski from working in his own country. Years later, the director managed to recover what was left, fragments, ruins, pieces of a lost epic, and reconstructed it, narrating the censored parts himself. What remained was something unique, unfinished, broken, but absolutely transcendent. On the Silver Globe tells the story of astronauts, new Adams and Eves, who found a new civilization on another planet. Over time, that reborn humanity creates its own religion, its own messiah, and repeats the same mistakes as on Earth. It's a brutal allegory about power, faith, and the corruption of ideals, a cosmic mirror of our inability to learn. Visually, it's pure insanity. Handheld cameras, endless deserts, screams, mud, feathers, blood, and poetry. It looks like it was filmed by gods drunk on despair and delirium. Nothing else on Earth looks like it. And what's most incredible is that something like this could never be made again. Because only a dictatorship could fund a work this demented. And only that same dictatorship could destroy it. On the Silver Globe was born from the delirium of power and the faith of an artist. That's why it's unrepeatable. Because no studio, no government, and no modern director could ever attempt something this colossal. It was banned, destroyed, and resurrected. And in that resurrection, it achieved immortality. It's incomprehensible, both because of the author's intent and the profanation it suffered. It won't appeal to everyone. In fact, I admire it deeply, but I find it almost unbearable. Still, it's a film that must be seen before you die, the last great cursed masterpiece in cinema history. If you discovered a film you didn't know, subscribe, leave a like, and tell me what you thought in the comments. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd. See you in the next video.